Hey, lions and lionesses. Today I'm going to share with you a prolific study on the human psyche, on the mind. And it didn't get a lot of play. It became a book later on, but this was done in 1979. And it's by the famous researcher, if you're in my world, this is someone you really admire. And this is Ellen Langer. She was a professor and is a professor both at Yale, where she began, and now at the School of Psychology at Harvard. And she's been doing that for 40 plus years now. And so it's called the counterclockwise study. Now, I'm going to read to you exactly the layout of this so that I don't miss anything, because I want you to understand this. Now, imagine for a moment living in a nursing home. Your meals are in a cafeteria. Your recreation is at scheduled times. And you're surrounded by other old people, mostly strangers. You've been robbed of your autonomy, maybe even your identity. The very things that make you you may be more tied to your past than your present, and no one expects very much of you anymore. No matter your age, this is not an environment in which most people thrive. But Langer thought that maybe, just maybe, if you could put people in a psychologically better setting, one they would associate with a better, younger version of themselves, their bodies might fall along. And she said, wherever you put the mind, you necessarily put the body. The mind and body are one. She explained this many years later in a separate interview. Since Langer couldn't actually send elderly people into the past, she decided to bring the past into the present. And this is what she said. We would recreate the world of 1959, so 20 years earlier for these people, and ask subjects to live as though it were 20 years earlier. How exactly did that work? Here's how Bruce Grierson described the beginning of this experiment in the New York Times Magazine. 8 men in their 70s stepped out of a van. Now, this is in their 70s in the 1970s, when 70 was really old. That's like today, like 90 or 100, right? So 8 men in their 70s stepped out of a van in front of a converted monastery in New Hampshire. They shuffled forward. A few of them arthritically stooped with a couple of canes. Then they passed through the door and entered a time warp. Perry Como crooned on a vintage radio. Ed Sullivan welcomed guests on a black and white television. Everything inside, including the books on the shelves and the magazine lying around, were designed to conjure 1959. So they created a monastery and a place where everything was as if it was 1959. The men didn't just reminisce about what things were like at that time. A control group did that. They were instructed to behave as if they acted as if it was actually 1959. Like, what were they doing in their lives in 1959? While the control group lived in a similar environment, but didn't act as if it were decades earlier. They discussed historical events as if they were current news, and no provisions were made that acknowledged the men's weakened physical state. So no one reaffirmed what they thought about their bodies, that their bodies hurt or anything like that. They weren't allowed to do that. No one carried their bags for them or helped them up the stairs or treated them like they were old. Nothing, no mirrors, no modern day clothing, no photos except portraits of their much younger selves spoiled the illusion that they had shaken off 22 years. A week later, both the control group and the experimental group showed improvements in physical strength, manual dexterity, gait, posture, perception, memory, cognition. Their IQ went up. Taste sensitivity, they could taste foods more. Hearing and vision. That's mind-blowing. And according to Langer's account, most of these improvements were much more significant in the group told to live as if they were actually 1959. So just to confirm, one group had to act as if it was 1959, and the other group just lived in the environment of 1959. A full 63% of the ones in the experimental group that acted as if had better intelligence test scores at the end of the experiment than they did at the beginning, compared to 44% in the control group. 4 independent volunteers who knew nothing about the study looked at before and after photos of the men in the experimental group and perceived those in the after photos as an average of 2 years younger than those in the before. On the last day of the study, Langer wrote, men, quote, who had seemed so frail just days before ended up playing an impromptu touch football game on the front yard. In some ways, the results should not be surprising. Bruce Grierson, the reporter that wrote about this, said that Langer actually said to the participants, we have good reason to believe that if you are successful at this, you will feel as you did in 1959. So she affirmed it, much like in the other study I told you about in the last audio about the chambermaids, that they believed they were doing enough work to get in better shape, and they had significant health improvements, even though they didn't change anything. They just changed what they believed. When you believe that something will affect you in a particular way, it often does. That's why placebo controls are baked into every rigorous clinical trial. Your own expectations and the expectations of others are powerful, and expectations of the declining cognitive and physical abilities that come with age are pervasive. You can avoid these things. Now, what is mind-blowing about this? One, that you probably never heard of it. Like, this is insanely amazing. And anytime you hear about something about consciousness, about belief, about the mind and how it creates the world, doesn't seem to get much play. It's called woo-woo. And when you train, you do something as long as I've done for decades, like 3 decades now, of training people, training yourself, and seeing that, okay, all these people seem similar, and they're doing similar things, but some just do amazing. Some people don't do anything. There's these extreme differences, and it's often in the mindset. And that's the thing that's missing from the whole health and fitness scene, is the mental conditioning aspect. Your mind creates reality. There's the law of cause and effect. First, everything is first created on the mental plane, and then it responds by being created. The effect is in the physical plane. So just to review these results, just so you can really think about this, the experimental group, who acted as if it was 1959, all improved their memory, their grip strength, so they physically got stronger without exercising, their joint flexibility, like touching their toes, improved, arthritis pain was pretty much gone, their IQ, their intelligence improved, their gait and posture improved, and as a result, their height improved. They got taller. And hearing and vision improved. And I look at a lot of research. There's never been studies showing there's any improvement in hearing and vision unless there's actually some significant intervention going on. This is simply using your mind and changing. So you got to become really aware. And this is the thing I want you to take away from this, is that one, there are 3 prerequisites to change anything in your life. The first one is self-awareness. And when you have a level of self-awareness, you know what's going on. And when you have a high level of self-awareness, like you're hearing these things about these studies of what is actually possible instead of what everybody tells you. Everyone complains about their bodies. They're falling apart, and they say aging is a thing that no one can avoid. Well, you will live longer, you'll use more time, but that doesn't mean you age. You age if you don't do certain things, and if you expect it. So if you expect to get old and your body to fall apart as you age, you absolutely will. Now, I believe this on a very deep level because I look into it, and I go out and I meet people. Like, I met a lady, 122 years old, in France. She's smoking a cigarette, drinking wine. She thinks it's healthy for her because when she was young, that's what she was told. The doctor recommended cigarettes to her because she had asthma. Like, how crazy is that? And so she really believes these things, and she's like, that's all nonsense. And she just walks, and she doesn't believe that when you get old, you lose function. And so that's a very beautiful thing. I've met dozens of people like that are 90 and above that do. There's these 2 guys that race every year. I'll have to send the video to you guys. They race every year in a track and field thing. One's like 100 and one's like 92. And so like this is big rivalry. So these are the things you want to look for. You want to start looking for truth, not what's being fed to you. Because once you have self-awareness, you also have to have self-honesty. Self-honesty is saying like, okay, I'm aware of what's going on. I know what I know now. And now, am I honestly applying it, or is it a thing I know but I don't really believe? Because that happens to a lot of us. There's stages of belief. And then the final thing, and the most important thing of those 3 prerequisites after self-awareness and self-honesty, is personal responsibility. You have to take 100% personal responsibility for everything in your life. And you never delegate your health to no one, not me, not a doctor. You need to own that because doctors are regular people. And I know a lot. I train a lot. And they got problems too. A lot of them are divorced. Most of them, I think 9 out of 10 of them, honestly. Nothing wrong with that, but they just work so many hours, and the way the healthcare system's set up in North America, it's pretty tough on them. And so it's really hard for them to show up when they're not at work because they're drained. And so it's one of those things where we got to take full responsibility for everything in our life and never blame anyone. Because when you blame someone, you have no power to transform, no power to lead. You can't do anything. You become a victim. And so I'll leave you with this. And it's one of the best quotes I ever heard. And I've been doing martial arts my entire life. I still do it like 2 hours every day just because I love it. And I had this instructor, Mike Lee Kinnaird. He's an Israeli commando. He's in special forces there for, I think, 13 years. And in the very first session I had with him, he goes, and he has this big, thick accent. He goes, in any encounter, you are either the victim or the attacker. Then he paused and he goes, you decide. And I didn't know it. I never thought of it that way. He says, like, no matter if you're being attacked, something's happening to you, you decide who the attacker is. As soon as you say they're the attacker, and you blame someone, they own you. They control you. They dictate your future. And that is a choice we all make personally. So when we say, like, no, that's enough. Like with a lot of things that are going on in the world right now, people are just telling you what you need to do. Like no one can tell you what to do with your body. You own your body. No one owns your body. You are blessed with an able mind and an able body if you're lucky. And life itself. Those are the three great possessions, the three great gifts we all have, the three great blessings. And they're our responsibility. No one can take those from us. We decide. And so when it comes to your body, when it comes to your health, you decide what's best for you, but you can't delegate it. You can't let someone in a white coat or someone on television tell you how to do it, or someone in the suit tell you what you're supposed to do with it. Only you will know what's best for you. All right, I leave you with that, my friends. Let me know what you think of this study. It's mind-blowing to me, and I'm glad I got to share it with you today. Have a great one. Bye.
You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.